And no issues on any of our streams either. I think it shows right there. If anybody's ever gotten into a stream with somebody that doesn't stream very often, and you spend 15 minutes of trying to fix the stuff.
I actually figured out what was wrong with my connectivity too. Remember, for the longest time, I was having issues with connectivity. Believe it or not, it was a patch cable or a small network cable between switches. So I upgraded all that. So I actually just went live. Welcome everybody to the channel. Got our colleagues here, friends from afar. Haven't caught up with them in a while to talk about how things have changed, because we know the GPU mining landscape has changed quite a bit. Actually, Son of a Tech, I'm going to go to you first, because I think you did a video about the impacts of the Ethereum merge or the days after and stuff like that. So the first question to everybody, and we'll go around the room, is how has the Ethereum upgrade impacted you, and how have you pivoted, or have you pivoted your operations?
You want me to go first?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So I was lucky enough right off the snap to realize that EVGA was going to be screwed on their difficulty adjustment. So I popped straight over to Caspa, and that really saved my year, right? But that's like something that was, a lot of people couldn't foresee how big Caspa got, not even me, right? So to say that is like a strategy that was well planned out and perfectly calculated would be a lie, right? All I knew was that putting anything on Ergo at that time was not going to work, right? Like the difficulty adjustment wasn't going to function properly. There was too much hash coming off of Ethereum. So a lot of my strategy from there was to kind of move everything around to whatever I could get good yields on as far as GPUs were concerned, and then take the profits that I had gotten off of like Caspa, etc., and to move into Bitcoin ASICs, right? So that's really kind of where I went with it. And the Bitcoin ASICs, like the thing about that is, for me, what I was looking at is like, what can I do that, I'm not going to be like making a ton of profits, right? But it's something that's you can calculate out. So it was easier to calculate that out, start writing out business plans and be like, okay, sure, maybe a 95 terahash in low power mode, like S19 is only going to make what, 30 cents a day or $1 a day, but it's going to make something, and I can actually put that into a spreadsheet and say, okay, how many do I need at this point, and how am I going to build that up, right? So that's kind of where I shifted. As far as the GPUs go right now, what I've been bouncing between is whatever I can get more. My strategy currently has been to see whatever I can get the most yield on, right? So typically pulling up mining pool stats, I'm sorting by which ones have had the most decrease in difficulty, and then I point my farm towards that. I've played with some other stuff, like Rainbow Miner, which does work, can get you into the profitability range, depending on your power cost, and does function well. So Rainbow Miner is something people can look at. I think it's really good for like, home miners that are just kind of looking to stack Bitcoin. It integrates with your NiceHash APIs, your mining pool hub APIs, your mining rig rental APIs. Mm-hmm. It usually is mining on like Zpool and Zergpool, swapping out whatever is most profitable and then moving it over. But the more people that do that, of course, the higher the difficulty on those profitable coins gets. And if they're all using the same software, well, then boom, you kind of get rid of that advantage, right? So that's the game you play.
And I actually just did an audit of Rainbow Miner on Yeti.uk. If anybody is interested in that, Son of a Tech on their locals has a pretty good guide for their members that I cited to in my video. Moving on, Vozcoin. Let's since the Ethereum merge, the first question, did you pivot your operations? What did you do?
So I started moving away from Ethereum and GPU mining. Well, I shouldn't say Ethereum, from GPU mining several years ago. As much as I love it, it just wasn't viable for me. And without going on a long story, rant, tangent, whatever, I had several mining farm plans basically just implode over the years. So I'm only recently kind of getting to the build out I wanted to do. And so with the very uncertain, and I think, you know, bad outlook for GPU mining a few years ago, I just kind of started to move away from it. And I stopped, I just downsized from there. On the ASIC side, you know, I had some Ethereum ASIC miners, and you know, I didn't like it because, you know, you don't know what your runway is. It's just stressful. It's not fun. It's not engaging. You lose like a key piece of mining, where it's like, you know, you get a miner for these other coins and algorithms. You're like, I'm going to set this up and I'm going to let this run for a long time. And only thing that can really stop me from running this is basically they're going to come out with a model that makes mine just very obsolete, inefficient to run. So kind of with that said, I've been just been pushing towards ASIC mining and other forms of mining, just because it's just really been the only viable option for me. And then post merge, it's, you know, the GPU mining profitability is terrible, like generally speaking. And so if you don't have the hardware, ideally you have the hardware and you've already, you know, broken even on it and then some. I mean, if I was in that position, you know, I would still be playing around, right? It would be fun to be exciting. I, you know, hope this one works out. But in my position, I just don't have that hardware. So I'd be buying new gear, and it just doesn't make sense to me right now to buy graphics cards for GPU mining. But without opening a whole can of worms, I am, you know, seeing a few things here and there, like the whole AI, you know, needing graphics card resources. I think could be like a really cool, but like if it's set up in a crowdsourcing manner, like a la mining, that could really lead like a resurgence for that type of hardware.
Yeah, the AI trend is growing amongst the cryptos. We see new cryptocurrencies coming out, or cryptocurrency projects coming out, trying to utilize AI in some way. Didn't you have a bunch of E9s, Vosk, earlier? Do you still have those E9s?
No, so I only had I had an E9, and I had a couple like basically off-brand Ethereum miners, like a Forest miner, which later on broke, and a couple of Jazz miners and things like that. But there was so much overflow of hash rate post merge that I just, you know, basically got away. Like I would turn that. It was so unprofitable, especially contrast with my electricity rate. I pretty much just turned a lot of that gear off. Now I am mining back on those algorithms with that hardware. Specifically, I have most things parked on just Ethereum Classic right now because the profitability has gotten better, especially if your rig is efficient. I've tried to do some ZIL mining. Some of these miners struggle with it. So that's what I'm doing with that.
Okay. And bits be tripping. We're not going to get into, because you're out in the wild and you work with a lot of different ventures. I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to focus on you and your personal operations, maybe you and Todd. How have you guys pivoted since the Ethereum merge, if you pivoted at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys saw a lot of that back in October of 21, right? We started our first kind of venture back into the ASIC world. You know, if you look at some of the old videos I had back in like 2013, 2014, I was testing out ASICs on Bitcoin when they first were coming out, and saw the risk of the centralization of that, because it was very hard to get them back then, even especially. Essentially, you were throwing coins into the sphere and hoping things would show up. You know, if we're talking like the original Avalons and like KNC. So I was very pessimistic, I would say, when it came to ASIC mining for a long time because of that, just because it was kind of like you had to know people. And I just felt that was it just didn't sit well with me personally back then. As we started to see, you know, the consolidation out of China in 21, it started to change my opinion on it, because it became a lot more available to people here in the States. So in October of 21, we started pivoting well ahead of Ethereum moving to proof of stake. So we did that first purchase of 53 miners. And that was at like peak, my dudes. Like that was really like 12,500 each, right? So that was a pretty large, sizable investment. And when you look at even with the yields doing pretty decent thing, because I think we were probably around 280 exahash total Bitcoin. Now we're at like a little over 400. Even with the yields, those things are not close to ROI, right? That's $12,500 per unit. The offset has been going further and deeper into it and getting machines in the latest 5 megawatt build at a relative price around 1,200, right? So almost
Big
a
difference.
10x decrease. So that helped, bring the dollar cost averaging, as it were, on miner pricing significantly lower. So it really helped those original 53 when you look at a total cost in. That coupled with being able to work with the power company to get a energy rate around here that it was at the time I thought was a dream. But we really worked with them over like 8 months to get a plan together and see if it was economically viable through a 3-year hedge with them, and actually got a public rate set up in our area. So there's been a few other miners that have came into this area because of that rate. It's public. You can go out and get it. It's essentially 3 cent energy. All in, it's 4-1 delivered, which is fantastic. I mean, you look at a lot of like hosting sites, they're at 6 and 7 cents. But this, being 4-1 all in is some of the best in the country that I've been able to find. And that really opened it up, for us to be able to, do some more mining on the Bitcoin side and really scale up. That being said, you have to hit 1.5 megawatts, the minimum. They had to put a threshold there. And, it doesn't take that much to get Bitcoin mining or any kind of ASICs in that form factor to 1.5 megawatts. You can hit it pretty quick at, 3,000 watts per unit. But, and there's a few sites like that around here where they've just, the substations didn't have any more than a little over 1.5 megawatt. So people have set, 20-foot containers there, maxed them out, and they're just bouncing, a couple of them are immersion cooled. Then there's a couple air cooled 40-footers that are right there at that. They're watching their meter, seeing if they can get close to that 1.5. The power company's been pretty cool about, as long as you're pretty close to it, they're not, holding you totally there. But I think that's a lot of it. Just us moving over to stay in this space, and we've been in it for a long time, and started to see, okay, what's a post Ethereum world? You guys have seen several videos I had before that where we went out there and did a lot of analysis and looked at like, what did the other coins have to be price wise for it to be able to absorb Ethereum, looking at the daily Ethereum yields and rates of return that Ethereum had. And I think at one point it was even before having before the Ravencoin halving, as an example, at 5,000 coins per 1 minute, it would, like, even Ravencoin would have had to been like 50 cents, right, for it to even be break even. And that was assuming the rest of the coins would have a lift too. So it was pretty apparent pretty quickly, like, is there enough value proposition for some of these other coins to be able to get that level of inertia and that much, revenue stream to keep it sustainable? And it wasn't looking pretty at that point. So we started early on what would it be to get, and it started with the power cost before even like what machines. We had to start working the power to get it down to where it would make sense. But that's really what we've done. I still do have some GPU mining machines running, and it's more for just support of the network type of thing, to where we're just absorbing the costs. Mind you, but the power costs a little cheaper than normal residential rate. It's a little easier to run some GPU miners that aren't as profitable. But it's more just to kind of keep myself in that space and understand what's changing. And what innovation. I mean, some of the stuff that's came out in some of the miners in just the software has greatly improved. Awesome Miner, we use that as an interface, has greatly improved. We have a lot of code that we've had written for like the management and the curtailment stuff on it. The space is elevated a lot more in a maturity standpoint. It's unfortunate, on the GPU side though, because it's still near and dear to my heart, right? I mean, any of all of us have been in this space for quite a long time and put a lot of time and effort into it, very genuine effort to try to understand it better and make it better and give feedback. And some of the products that now came out look a lot better, but there's really nothing to support the interest to bring it over to, with a lot of people. So I don't know. I'm still cautiously optimistic. I'll close on the, with the advent of a lot of the machine learning and AI technology being a lot more democratized, where you can go out and run your own, like you can download right now ChatGPT 2 yourself. Like you download the whole model and run it locally. It's like a 2 terabyte, data core. And then essentially you can run your own like A5000s and run your own version of AI and start training it yourself. The fact that that's now getting to where you can do that at home. I run Stable Diffusion here locally, just of trying to retrain it even more. It's kind of like a Dolly type of thing, or a Mid Journey, but local. So then you can feed it your own stuff and get more. I see things like Render and some of these other tokens that have focused on that kind of distributed tech side of it. Like maybe there is a kind of a shelling point where, like overnight, that one of those tokenized coins that really starts to break through. Maybe it's useful proof of work or something like that. But we'll see.
I'm waiting for James Cameron to issue a workload or a job for rendering out the next avatar, and then all our GPUs help compile it. So you actually led into the second part, and this is going to be open floor, whoever wants to go first. We all have different viewpoints or vantage points, or however you want to call it. What have you seen as far as changes externally? So not in your own operations, but externally, and how have those operations, individuals, users adjusted over the past year? And anybody can go first.
I can jump in real quick, or you could do it. You want to go, Vosk?
Well, Carter, I just want to say I love the term that you used, like cautiously optimistic. I mean, like that's like a perfect tagline to sum up where I'm at with that side of stuff. I'm real cautious with it, but like I'm really rooting for it. Like I wish GPU mining was like, we're like, oh my gosh, it's the third golden era of GPU mining. But I don't want to take us back off track because we're moving on. I just wanted to say that. But
I mean, I still got my GPUs and I'm still hashing away, in various projects and stuff like that. It sucks. Like me and Son of a Tech got in on Caspa with our GPUs early before others got onto it. So we did our thing, and now it's just not mineable by GPUs. So there's spec mining. Spec mining is actually still okay. The problem is I've seen too many copy paste rug pull projects. They just create the project, they change the name, they change the supply, they might copy a few things here and there, and then all they're doing is just selling as new miners come online. And you got to be very careful. I talked about that before.
There's a business model going on too right now from Bitmain, I'm pretty sure. When we look at the trends from new cryptos being launched, they're being launched as CPU and GPU mineable, kind of that same evolution of Bitcoin from CPU to GPU, and then now to FPGA, and then it goes to ASIC. And it does look like you got to be careful with these because they really do look like they are coordinated, right? I mean, we saw the big pumps and dumps with Cadena, and then that move into ASICs with Caspa. It looks like Nexa is kind of slated to kind of go that route, as well as like Radiant. We had a bunch of these projects come out, and it's like there seems to be, at least because you're going back to your question of like, what are the external moves that you're noticing? I'm noticing that this seems to be some sort of background work with a lot of these smaller coins and ASIC manufacturers. And that puts it into an interesting position as to like, what is the actual goal behind it? And it seems to be more of a goal of selling miners, right? Than from Bitmain for shit coins, than it seems to be about building a robust decentralized network.
But do you think it's really like that grand of a plan, or do you think it's just like lackluster deployments where like they're just tweaking an algorithm? Like they're not deploying on, say, like something ASIC resistant, and it's just a lot of copy and paste. And then at Bitmain HQ, they're like, oh cool, knock another altcoin ASIC out of the park. Obviously, they're just in it to sell shovels or miners, right? And you know, I definitely agree and get that. But do you think it really is like as cool and grand as coordinated, or it's just kind of like the level?
I think some may be coordinated, some may not, right? It's hard to tell. It's just a trend that I'm noticing, right? Whereas in the previous cycle, the trend we saw was ASIC resistant coins, right? Raven coin was popping off. All of these types of things were like we were pushing, Prog Pow was developed, all that sort of stuff was happening running up until the previous bull run. And now we've seen a complete shift. Like the entire trend is to build these, you know, basically build out, you know, coins that are planned moves to ASIC. So it's just a different trend that I notice. Now, is that coordinated with Bitmain specifically, or is Bitmain hopping on? You know, I don't know, because I don't have ears in there. I think it's a very it's something to be extremely cautious surrounding, though, right? You know, if you're going to go drop 60 grand on a KS3 or something, you need to understand what the history of coins that have gone that route have ended up, or how those have ended up, right? Where you have like even like the dash miners, like I have a D9 that, like, you know, honestly, it's like ROI never at the end of the day once those pop off. So it's a weird trend, and I don't know why that is, and I don't know. It seems like the discussion of decentralization, as far as the mining side of things goes, has kind of gone away. There's not a lot of people pushing for like
to keep the
decentralized proof of work mining. Yeah.
Well, nothing was as expansive as Ethereum, right? You had, and I think Carter, you did the math. We had X amount of GPUs and X amount of ASICs, and it was a very decentralized network. And now it's very centralized on AWS and stuff like that. I think these projects are pushing to go into ASICs because they believe there's more, like they'll have a more expansive network, or it's just a natural progression of these crypto projects. Now, I know some projects have declared from the get-go that they plan to expand into ASICs, but a lot of projects haven't declared that, and if they're just moving that way because they're seeing that GPU miners aren't supporting their network, so the next logical move for them as a project is to go into ASICs, so that way hopefully they can expand their network and increase, because the larger the network, not necessarily means more decentralized it is, but technically the more security you have, right?
Well, the more power, right? So there, from a security, there's decentralization, which is how many individuals are mining the chain, right? And then there's security, which is how much power does it take to attack the network, and how much does that cost? So there's two different realms there. The problem that you get with ASICs is their efficiency gets better, though, is that it doesn't always necessarily mean that you're using less power or more power, right? So if you take a look at like Caspa, for example, right, the amount of power it took to hit this, you know, the amount of power utilized by GPUs versus the amount of power to utilize like ASICs is completely different, right? It's way more efficient now. So if you take a look at that, like, it's not even necessarily, so your argument could be correct in the fact that ASICs you would deploy to increase security on the network by increasing the amount of power overall with less users. But that doesn't always play out. Like, that's played out on Bitcoin, but it hasn't played out on the smaller coins necessarily. A little bit maybe with Dogecoin or Litecoin.
Well, so I want to ask a question is, you know, we talk a lot about like this current status, but like, what's an idea that we could, well, let me backtrack. So I think an issue with the current era, and this is just my 2 cents, right, obviously, but I don't think there's a lot of loyalty left in GPU mining. Kind of roughly, generally speaking, I'm sure someone's upset now, but like, it's a lot of profit switching, a lot of, you know, I mean, it's a lot of profit switching, to kind of put it simply, or you're just mining and selling, which is, you know, putting that sell pressure. So with general purpose hardware, it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, it's cool that it can do all these things, but that also that's like, if you contrast that with an ASIC, this is like a SHA-256 ASIC. Let's say like it's pretty much just
Yeah.
a Bitcoin miner. And having dedicated mining hardware like for your coin is incredible, in my opinion, if we had better manufacturers with actual transparency. But
That's
bring
the
it back, or sorry, go ahead.
that's the argument the developers for Caspa have for going to ASICs. That's also the argument Nexa has for going for ASICs, which is because this hardware only mines our coin, we don't have to worry about fluctuating security on the network.
But so to bring it back to graphics cards or even another general purpose hardware, right? How do you incentivize long-term support from multi-use hardware? Because just to throw one thing out there that I saw that was interesting is time locking rewards. Like you mine and you get these coins in whatever future date, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. Some people really push back at that. Because I remember, I think I saw that around Zcash. But either way, the point is, well, that's just food for thought. So how do you guys think that we could, incentivize long-term GPU mining support?
I mean, most incentive, everybody wants instant gratification nowadays. So we're going to incentivize it. They want their rewards now, not later. But
Well, that and then the economic model of that's a little wonky because in times where maybe you have a large liquidity event or somebody comes in and dumps a lot of coins, drops the price, and then it's time for you to liquidate part of it for maybe your cost of operations. If you have some held, it's kind of like a forced total. I don't know how that incentive would keep somebody there. They'd probably, the next thing would come up and they'd probably move to that. It reminds me of a lot of the discussion back in 2013 when Bitcoin started switching over to ASICs. And part of the argument was that you would have more of a grounded focus on the coin. Now it's not so much consumer hardware risk of people moving around because you did have Litecoin, you did have Feathercoin, you had a Purecoin, Curecoin, some of those coins coming up. And there was some concern that it was going to happen exactly what we've seen with like profit, shifting stuff. And so there was this this inertia behind like trying to build out and fabricate new hardware and faster ways to do it. Especially as it started getting more and more liquidity. I think, going partially back to some of the other discussion about like, is there, is the cart driving the horse type of thing with like Bitmain, preceding maybe a network and then setting up hardware. Part of the risk on that doubles down on their like CapEx risk because they have to still go fabricate something. Typically, it's these companies will look at it because even though they're well funded, they also have investors. They have people that they have to talk to a board on and say, hey, here's what we're going to do with this money. And then here's our runway and our roadmap. And most of that is just keeping a spatial awareness of what's in the market and what has kind of some level of inertia. And then they'll go, okay, we'll do a short run with that. It's going to cost X to blueprint it, do a quick run and see what we can get. There's always been speculation that they put those on the network ahead of time to burn in test. How long until those finally hit a consumer and all that kind of front running. So I think the risk of them preceding it, there might be some level of intention there. I mean, that'd be like a smoking gun type of situation. Like, are they preceding networks and investing, guerrilla style, like getting the marketing? I mean, I did see a huge push with Caspa recently, like an overabundance amount of like paid post and all that. And folks I've never seen before that somehow have 100,000 subscribers, just saying it's the best thing they've discovered. All
those,
that there's
those channels that get 100,000 subsubscribers out of nowhere and then they're
out of
pumping
nowhere,
stuff
yeah.
and you're like, okay.
Yeah, so there's some kind of trickery going on here. And that's why I sometimes say cautious optimistic, but it also brings me back to like the part of the whole original lure that even brought me into this space, well back in the day. I mean, late 2010, 2011, when I discovered Bitcoin, essentially the first day you could mine it with a GPU is the first day that I discovered it. And that was just because I used to do folding at home and study at home. And it was on a forum. And somebody said, hey, you can use your GPU to do this thing. These tokens, they're not worth anything right now, but maybe they will be. And the fact that I could get lost in that and be able to get a machine running, there was a lot of, personal felt like success of even getting it to work. And, that's why I made the original channel with everybody else. Like, you got to try this. This is amazing. And by the way, you might make money. It was more of that then. I think that's a genuine kind of natural effect. Anybody that likes to nerd out on hardware and stuff finds that attractive. And the fact that anybody could go and get a graphics card at that point and participate. I think that's the foundation. That's the market that I think everybody would like to see hit. The unfortunate thing is, though, the incentives and the structures are set up in such a way that when it does get enough, value, then you have a lot of larger entities and stuff looking at like, how could they co-opt that value? Could they create something that's just so fast and they can make a limited supply of them? And is there competition and that sort of thing? So as genuine, and I think is the initial inertia is on some of these coins with the initial, we're going to try to do something different. We fork this thing, fair market launch, all that kind of stuff. It still ends up getting co-opted, I think, by the larger entities once there's enough, value for everybody to jump in. So I don't think there's a magic source to kind of keep something. I think there was an attempt with that with like Prog Pow. Obviously, there's problems. People have a lot of problems with Prog Pow because of the intensity that it does on the GPUs. And if you let it go full tilt, it will melt your shit. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? But like that, I think was the closest attempt at trying to solve from a GPU standpoint. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't see it. I can sit here today and look at it and say, do I see a potential GPU coin for the purpose of normal cryptocurrency features and functions? I don't, more than if something had such an impact as a secondary effect. If it was rendering something, if it does allow that, like the concept of proof of use will work, is novel. I don't know if it's all the way there yet, looking at it from an architecture standpoint, but I think there needs to be something else now tied to it more than just the tokenomics type of concept, right? I think people now are kind of been through their third wave with it, and it would be third wave for me. I think technically it's two when you look at the initial lifts. I include Bitcoin mining it with GPUs, my dudes. So it's like, I think we're going to get there. I think there will be something with a GPU, but I think it's definitely not going to be just based on the token piece. And, we'll see. FPGAs, programmable graphics cards that are even more closer to a graphics card than an FPGA. There's people doing test and tech like that. I can see that now kind of coming into fruition as we get into the next kind of bull, because most of those bulls, there's people working on that stuff right now. I mean, we've talked to, and Todd and I had the fleet up in Wisconsin, because we had 2,400 GPUs up there, right? So it's like we didn't sell any. So we're like, what can we do with these? They're all sunk costs. We had them in 2016. Almost nearly everything's paid off besides the A5000s I bought kind of late, right? Because I was just like, still had that, we all have hit it. Like, just one more sets of GPUs. And it was just like when they came out, I was like, oh, these things are awesome. And how could I justify it? Oh, I could probably put them on AI because I'm going to do that, at scale. Not so. I still have those and they're awesome and they do some stuff, but we did work with the group for a short period of time and try to see if there was a way for us to be part of there was a company that goes and does essentially white hat hacking. They get jobs from people that have like locked up, not just like crypto wallets, but like maybe an encrypted hard drive, something like that. Companies come to this company and they use essentially bladed servers to go through and attempt, building out a brute force list essentially. So they're like, I know it had an H in it and I know it had this in it, but I don't know the password. So they have enough to get it within the realm of possibility to crack through a brute force by shifting what is known. But they were trying to build a version of that that could be deployed as packages, because any of that brute force stuff usually is a big, huge data dictionary, and it's essentially updating its where it's at in its process of brute forcing, which is usually like just a large package on a computer, and then you're sending it maybe to an array of 8 GPUs. They were working on a novel way to break that up, essentially like the same way we do with hashing, where it will give like a number line concept, or it would say you're going to brute force. I'm going to clone this instance and then give you a brute force package set. Then it would try that on each GPU individually. What we found was it's not optimized, and we used quite a bit of power in the test and deployed it to the machines. Like we had a little Linux image for it. And, you know, it wasn't incentivized in any way yet, but they were like, can we get the hardware to work with this software package? And then maybe we can figure out how to create a token that would then incentivize people to do this. But then it kind of like hit the brakes of like, wait a minute, if this gets out in the wild, that could be a huge risk, right? Because now you have this network that's made to crack passwords.
Right.
And I guarantee you somebody's going to take that in a nefarious way. And then number two, it just was extremely inefficient versus running it like on a local machine. You know, by the kilohashes per second, essentially equivalent on like a 480, RX 480. And it, like if you had it local on like a 3070, it was, you know, 500 million transactions per second. So it was just like huge orders of magnitude of inefficient. But like that, I was interested in trying to help this entity try to figure out a solution, leveraging the hardware that we had. I don't even think we charged them for it. I mean, we paid power for it, but we were like, let's see if this works first before we talk any kind of money exchange type of thing, and just see if it's even, you know, from a research standpoint. But like that kind of innovative, like looking at it, and then with a few of the things that are doing the useful proof of work, you know, I see some of them talking about ASICs and stuff, which makes no sense to me from a useful proof of work, because it's going to need that general purpose GPU to do the computations. You know, an ASIC's not going to do that, not unless you make a really weird ASIC that looks a lot like a GPU in between an FPGA that can do all kinds of, you know, polymath and, you know, vertices and all kinds of things that would be relevant to proof of work stuff, or useful proof of work. But you know, I think we will see this next phase, and I think it'll emerge during the bull market, because people are green lighted. I think there's a lot of ideas on the shelf, and they're just not getting funded right now.
And you actually led into my third point about public plans for the future, because
I'm looking at it. I'm helping you.
what I see is, I appreciate it. What I see is, Voss, you mentioned AI. Carter, you mentioned actually folding at home, which I participated a lot in back in the day. What about a folding at home incentivized with tokenomics? But the biggest benefit is, guess what? You're actually helping out with research for cures on XYZ, medical conditions, whatever. Like, that's something I could get behind. And those different aspects, as you said, are being worked on. And I think we actually have, don't we have an FPGA type ASIC, the multi-miner M2 or something like that?
ones and all that.
So like, and ASICs are becoming more efficient. We got the S21 around the horizon. Matter of fact, I already told Carter this, but Vosk and Son of a Tech, I need one ASIC because I need to do my immersion build. But that's neither here nor there. Just keep me in mind if you bump into one. But the ASICs are becoming more efficient. I don't think they're becoming like Moore's law. We're not advancing as fast as we could or should have compared to the past. So we're just going to see these incremental bumps. And the reason GPU mining was so much more prevalent, in my opinion, was because the barrier to entry was low. And now guess what? Nvidia's GPU prices have gone up. AMD's GPU prices have gone up. We're not getting as much. They're restricting it at the hardware level instead of at the software level by decreasing the memory bus and the bandwidth and yada, yada, yada. So the barrier to entry for GPU mining was low, making it easier for anybody to just pick up and go. That's increasing due to current market conditions, so it's not as attractive. Whereas instead of me building a 6 GPU rig of 4070s, I could go spend that money and go get a Bitcoin ASIC, right? You said it was around $1,200. So now we start to compare and contrast. But moving forward, do you guys have any plans? Now, this is only public information, nothing proprietary and nothing that you have internal for your business and for your goals. Anything you guys got planned for the future? Are you planning on expanding, buying this, buying that? What?
Well, I think we're all maniacs here. I don't think any of us are going to stop. That's why we're all still here. But I want to hear from somebody else first.
I have some plans, but a lot are internal as far as that goes. I'm going to keep the only plan that I have that I would share that I think other people could benefit from is creating a LLC holding company. And that holding company is specifically just to hold Bitcoin miners. So you buy the Bitcoin miners, you store them in a storage facility, and you hold that until the bull run. That's the only thing I would talk about that would be kind of, I think, one of the strategies that I'm utilizing.
Actually, I actually was just talking to a friend of mine, and don't lose your thoughts, son of a tech. But I got a clients, a bunch of S9s, and the S9s, they're cheap right now. But when the next bull run comes, if I can get, because there's a few hash boards that aren't working, if I get them working, then he could sell it for hundreds of dollars more than what they would be selling right now. But go ahead, finish your train of thought.
Yeah, I'm focused on the S19s and S19 Pros, avoiding the XPs.
I was about to say.
And then that's some of the Avalons are kind of enticing, but the amount of like right now, the curious thing on the Bitcoin mining side that's really cool is the amount of hashboard options and firmware options that are allowing a lot of tweaking. And you can get a lot more profitable than what people are seeing on the profitability calculators, which gives you a significant advantage. If you look at something like picking up some of those new Epic boards, for example, where you don't have any developer fees on those things, and you're talking about some crazy efficiencies on old hardware that, like, honestly, dude, like, able to pick up those 95 terahash S19s for like 500 a pop on pallets and just friggin' just start holding those things, start getting the hash boards in for them, start getting them efficient. And I think that is from the guy, from my perspective, I started out in reviewing GPUs and stuff, and like I like tweaking stuff. So now that these ASIC miners give me this kind of like freedom of like swapping out hash boards or not hash control boards and testing and seeing which one's better and what their power rates are going to be and all that, and kind of doing future projections on those. That's kind of what I'm having fun with right now, on the and the GPU side of things has gotten very restrictive as well. So it's not as fun anymore, right? There's no BIOS flashing for even AMD anymore. So what are you going to do? You buy a 7000 series GPU, it's still worse than the 6000 series. The 4000 series has some advantage on the AI side of things or whatever. But if we're being completely honest, like proof of useful work has a long way to go. I was talking to IDOC, the developer for BZ Miner. And like he pointed out, all the proof of useful work stuff right now is basically just running a hashing algorithm separate and then verifying that you're doing the useful work side of things. We don't have an actual algorithm that has combined the useful work with the hashing algorithm. And until that happens, I don't think that goes anywhere personally. Like, what's the point? Like, all that also opens up too many attack vectors, right? Because of course, somebody on Dynex or Flux is going to figure out how to do just the hashing algorithm, drop their power rate, and just be earning coin and not doing the useful work side of things. If it becomes that profitable, that incentive's there. And so that's got to get fixed.
Yeah, and Yeti's right now working with the Dynex team. He's actually on site with them trying to get work on that. I don't have the answer to it. I don't think we have the answer to it. But if they can solve that, whichever group it is, whether it's Flux or Dynex, I think that would be useful for not trying to create a pun here or anything. But we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, though, for sure. Vosk, I saw you got a container from what's the shop we were talking to at Mind Disrupt, Mike?
Digital Shovel.
Digital Shovel. Do you get any more of those containers, Vosk?
So I have the one mini pod, and there's been a couple hiccups, but it's been a good experience. It's one thing that I like Scott at Digital Shovel is doing is he's designed a new PDU that will work on single phase as well as three phase. So there's a lot of modularity there, especially you can take this in scale, or you can do it small scale and then sell to a farm if you quit or whatever. It just reduces the risk heavily, which I think will increase the, decrease the barrier to entry, right? I'm in a weird situation with my farm where I'm on single phase electricity. I'm working with the electric company to bring out three phase. It's been a big back and forth, this and that. We've got to do this, and we have the plan. We need a couple more easements, and it's just a pain. I mean, you guys probably dealt with that stuff before. And as much as you want it to go fast, you can just give up on that. You just need to turn around whatever they need from you as quick as you can, and then
wait.
accept. I've just accepted that. I hope that I have three phase at my farm in 2024. It could be December. Right. It's slow moving, but three phase for me will be really important because it will allow me to scale up some. It will decrease my electricity rate with the way that they work and all that. But anyway, that's I don't want to get on a tangent or an aside, but but the cool thing that Scott at Digital Shovel is doing is he's made a smaller version. It's basically 200 amp, and it'll work on single phase, and it'll be cheaper. And I think that'll help create a more plug and play kind of design for at-home miners if they don't want to DIY their own shed or stuff like that. But I guess to bring it back to my farm and what I'm doing, it's basically that. It's a big electricity battle. Like with my location, I don't plan to ever leave. So that's why my end game is solar, but it's very capital heavy. It's a big endeavor, and I'm personally just kind of taking it piece by piece. For a while, I was just pushing too much all the time, and it was just really degrading, like my life. And so I've tried to I'm not there yet, but I'm still trying to, get back to some work-life balance. So I've kind of eased off the gas basically, but I still work a ton, but yeah. So right now I've really just been trying to get back to having fun. I think at some points in my personal crypto journey, it's like become very heavy, very go, very work. And I've tried to take a step back in a sense of just like, what do I want to do? Like, what's fun? What's interesting? Like, what can I do to get me excited? Like, I'm not just going to sit here and just run the numbers and like, this is exactly what I should do because this, has the best profit projection, or, I can try to, have a good return on investment if I do this. It's just kind of, how can I have some fun? And it's kind of like, to bring it back to what we talked about earlier, why did you all get into this? It's like, you thought it was cool. You thought it was interesting. You enjoyed it. You probably fired up a GPU rig and you were tinkering with it. It was fun. And that's just kind of where I'm getting at my point in this is, how can I get back to having fun? Because I feel like I've lost some of that along the way. And so recently I've been having more fun just doing some things that a lot of people think are, they disagree with. Like I'm just doing it for like fun. I hope it'll work out. But basically, like, I grabbed a shed and I'm treating it like a mini data center. It's not air cooled. I put a mini split on it. And so I'm doing hard drive mining in there and looking at the power consumption. I can basically run it forever. It's, expensive to buy into the hard drives, but the power use is so low. I'm like, I can just run this forever. And I look at the solar panels I need to power it. So like, that'll be like the next thing I do. And I think that'll be fun is it's like, I'm going to make this green shed literally green. And it's just not going to be just a massive endeavor like it would be to make just 10 Bitcoin miners running straight off solar. I mean, it's a lot more production. And then last week I just deployed an immersion tank, and so like I've seen immersion farms. I mean, most everybody has at this point, but I've never really immersion mined at like any sort of like scale. So I plopped 8 S19s in there. and then flash the control board to brains. And kind of like Son of a Tech was saying, like I was having fun. I was like, oh, let me like change the power, and it's giving me the watt, terahash readout, and I'm just kind of like, this is like more akin to like what I like. It's the fun, it's the journey, it's the tinkering. It's not just swipe the card, buy some gear, throw it up in a warehouse, and I hope I have more dollars tomorrow. So I guess to just round it out, I'm just trying to have fun, do some cool shit, and I think that I'm hopeful that all of this will pay off big time in the bull run. I've got the runway to get there with the way I'm operating. And so I'm playing the long game. I'm hopeful 2024 will be a great year. I'm ready to go all the way to 2025 and beyond. And I want to make sure that I work out the bugs in my operation, and I have some scaling plans, and just that I have gear deployed and I have room to deploy more gear, and I have a just actionable plan to expand beyond that if that's what I want to do at that time. And so that's where I'm at. I mean, it's you think of developing this is a period of building because the markets suck. So
Yep.
I'm here in the trenches just digging away.
Usually the best time to build is during the bear market. So we got exactly 7 minutes before this call ends. Bits be tripping. Round us up.
Yep.
And thank you for the donation. You shouldn't have done that.
Well, it's lunch on me, my dude. It's all good.
I appreciate it. But I thank you
Yeah,
all for
no,
coming. I'm going to let Bits be tripping sign us off and round us up.
Yeah, next time we're definitely, I mean, with all of us on here, we're definitely going to have to make this next one a 2 hour at least, because we can definitely
years.
go for a bit. I think we're all veterans at this. Yeah, I mean, I think just keep your focus, find what's if I would say this to anybody, what your passion is. It's hard. I mean, musicians and people that have been in entertainment live with this every day, right? It's like if somebody's not buying their entertainment, that it's hard to stay passionate, right? Because they're trying to move on. A lot of us in that way are in a very moving target when it comes to kind of stay sustainable in this space if you're doing it full time. And one thing I definitely changed, when we went to a larger scale, was looking at doing a lot of other services. So, I mean, all of us on this are very smart with this technology. You guys have a lot of experience in it, and it's trying to find where you can also assist others in their journey. So having that, building a size and revenue around that, I think is a big piece. That's what we've really done. Invested in, invest in yourself, as they always say. And once you start seeing that inertia move, and you start seeing like, hey, I'm helping other farms, I'm going out and providing experience, put some structure around it. That's essentially what we've done, and we're expanding. So we have the 5 megawatt. We're right now working on a 27 megawatt build. That's a much larger task for me to take on, but I think we have the right people. We have the right power rate for that. It's going to be at a power plant, so that's going to be interesting. I'm working through all the details of that on how we're going to film and be able to film, because that's critical infrastructure. But we're meeting with the leaders of the area, meeting with potentially a governor, to bring them along with it, and being able to bring all you along with it. Like, how do we do that? Because I think we are the ground essentially force on getting proof of work figured out for people to be able to participate, from small sheds to all the way up to maybe stuff that's sitting on a power plant, right? It's making essentially our, America in general, the ability to be a leader in this, and take everybody along with it, man. A lot of us are greenfielding this, right? We're learning as we go. We show everybody that. Never feel bad about that. Always show like, hey, I'm learning this with you. I'm just happen to have a camera with me. All right. So that's okay. That's how we learn. And at that iteration, we're putting in the effort and the time, right? You guys are putting in the effort and the time too. So it's lean into that experience and that confidence that you have in it, and, hedge it, like other work, other jobs. How can you pull communities together? And I think as long as we focus on that, and do collaborative stuff. I mean, when we get into this build, you guys are all welcome to come up. I happily put some of us all to work, and it'll be funded too. So
that's the trap.
it'd be a fun build when we kick off on that. It's much larger. I mean, you're talking 10,000 plus ASICs. So it's I think that'll be a fun experience for everybody to be part of the all that stuff. So I'm going to try to bring people along with us. I got a fly in here. I always have flies in here. But yeah, I think just stay tuned. It'll be a good one.
Well,
to bring
Carter,
along.
I just want to say before we get off, look, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm in. I bet we're all in. I'll be pretty fun and exciting. I just kind of picture maybe be like the Avengers, right? But crypto nerd mining edition. Let's go.
Dude, I'm sure somebody would Photoshop that. I'm sure somebody would Photoshop the Avengers.
It's us in our element. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I mean, I can't wait. I wish we had more time to do more videos. We've been very busy with this. I've never been as busy as I am now in my entire life. So it's been between that. I do a lot of consulting, other work. You guys see me in DC a lot. I was over in Germany a few weeks ago. We're all over right now doing stuff. And yeah, I'd love to have you guys out, come out, check out the site, and just see how that is. Cause it does allow, I think, more people to understand how to get into it, how to get efficient stuff, like with the Epic boards as an example, lean out that cost and allow more people to participate. Because I mean, when that next bull market, my dudes, like that next leg up, when we start to see in halving, if you're not bullish about this space, all you have to do is look around and look at, if they wanted to try to kill it, I go and talk to the government on this regularly. I was just in DC a couple weeks ago. And the one thing I would say is the majority of the folks out there are bullish about it. They like they understand this is where the space is going, where people are interested, leaning out processes. It's just a matter of good things also bring bad people to it. And how do you create the incentive structures for you just don't have so many rug pulls and that kind of thing. So they're trying to figure that out. I think it's going to be a very hard thing to figure out for them. And they're just going to have to put fence post up somewhere and just say, hey, decentralized is this. At some point, you're going to convert it. And at that point is when they're going to do KYC, KYT. And then people are going to move on with stuff. So I think more exposure to that and that process, I think, would help people have a little more confidence. But I'm hyper bullish on this. That's why we're building and investing a lot of time and money into it. And I don't see it going anywhere. I see it going just exponentially up for all the reasons I just said about the building and just the discussions and folks. I think it's a good space. It's definitely comes with its pain.
Well, I thank you all for spending some time with me. The meeting's about to cut out. Next time I'll schedule it for 2 hours, but I know we're very busy. I really appreciate your time. Keep in touch, all right, guys?
Hey, it was a pleasure. It was good to connect with you all.
See you next Tuesday.
See you guys.
See ya.
All right. So I'm sure you guys got a lot of information. I mean, that's a wealth of knowledge in that group. I know Voscoin has been on a up and down journey. I think we all have, to be honest, as far as our crypto journey. There's highs, there's lows, there's craziness. But I thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time. Thank you for the donations, even though, Mike, you didn't have to do that. I appreciate the lunch. And I will schedule more time in the future. It's very hard to pinpoint a time where I can get these guys in, because we're so busy. I will try to do a community based Twitter spaces. So follow me on Twitter, where you yourself can come in and chat and talk. I want to hear from you. What did you do after the Ethereum merge? How did you pivot? Did you sell your GPUs, get an ASIC? Did you sell your GPUs, get an FPJ? All that. So stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter. Great guys. Michael's a great guy at heart. Son of a Tech, great guy at heart. Voscoin, great guy at heart. We all make mistakes throughout the journey. I know there's some points in our past, content or journey that you can critique and call out. But it's all, as Mike said, a learning experience, and we just happen to have a camera and we're taking you with us. So keep hashing, keep your head down, keep grinding, hang tight to the next bull market, and stay positive and keep helping one another out. So thank you so much for watching. Do me a favor, hit the like button on the way out. Make sure to get subscribed, hit the notification button to stay up to date, as well as check out some additional links in the description to help support the channel and what we do here. You just have yourself a wonderful day. Take care. Catch you next one.